Action! All right, ready to go. Sorry, that's a lot of crotch very early on in the show. I apologize, thrusting your faces, but you are in the cock seat, so you better get used to it. With these guys, you are in spandex fucking territory, right? Acrobats are running around at the right eye level over here, you know, it's feeling like... Vaginas, thank you, Betty, yes. Maybe a little tip of the pee-pee poking through if we're lucky, but if we see that, we'll play a little game. It's called Jew or Not Jew, and then you guys guess what you're looking at. Tally it up later on.
In 1952, a U.S. aircraft carrier lands in Lebanon. The doorbell rang and I was the one who opened the door. And there was in front of me a 6'2", navy white hat, perfectly white iron pants, tight like that. This person, it was like a heavenly kind of image. And my aunt, my father's sister, Rosie, comes out and bam, a year later, she gets on a boat, she's coming to America to marry.
Վարդին որ պիտի երթար Ամերիկա, անոր համար շատ լավ հավաքություն կազմակերպած էինք, ուրեմն ներկային իր բոլոր բարեկամները, ընկերները, շատ լավ հաճելի ժամանակ ունեցանք։ Դե նավահանգիստ եկանք, բոլոր բարեկամասական, բոլորն ալ նավահանգիստ ներկային իր բաժանման։
There was probably at the port over 100 people of this one clan, because this is the first person of the clan leaving to America. Do you remember the day Rosie came to America?
Well, I do remember because I was very close to Rosie Tanti.
Yeah.
And she had given me more attention than anyone else in the family, so I was very attached. And I remember very well the crying, I remember all the people around the boat, saying goodbye, and I was young, I was probably 10. I think what I remember, that's what Uncle had said. No one is getting married in Lebanon because we are going to America. My sister left, we're all going, we have to be together.
بيته خلف تلالا بيطلع من قبالنا.
It was this aunt that brought this whole clan one by one, family, cousin, did all the legal work and all that. And under my aunt's rule, 2-3 times a year, this group came together.
جارة القمر يا أحلى غنية يا جارة القمر موجبها السهرية.
The aunt, whose house it was, she had spent a whole life bringing all these people together. She was like the matriarch of the whole community.
جارة القمر نحن والقمر جيران
Nasılsın? Yakab.
Next case. 4 çağır.
Alright, anladım. Gerek avore. Gel. Yerbat khat.
It's nice. Really good.
Right, get that.
Here in America, you go to a guest house, right away they ask you for a drink. Armenian home, you walk in, they start shoving things down your throat until you're like stuffed to death. because making and preparing has become such a cultural thing of feeding each other. It's a whole body thing, so very sensual, the making efforts of all of those is very, very sensual.
شرحنا الهوى بوحكايات نحن والقمر جيران
Çiğdir çerene, verme beni çobana. Çoban zaten tüter, geçi boynuzun tüter. Eder bu da şunu, süpür şunu, kaldır.
Family is all the chances and possibilities you have in front of you who you could become. I really think we need all those aunts, uncles, and all that somewhere to find the person that you're going to connect with on a level of not mother's, father's need, but more of a soul level. Any child in a family, for the most important thing children want, Onnig, is safety. They have to feel safe. That's all a child wants. And I think each one at least needs to have one person in the family who will give them that safety. You know, I enjoyed that gentleness that Araxitandi had with me. Because I knew I had unconditional love from her. Because she has accepted me as who I am. She has loved me as who I am. My mom didn't have that. Այն բստիկ եղածադես, յուս գերևագայի, բստիկ եղածես գիշեն բատմութիւններ շնացեմ, որ մաման իմ մամաս չէ, բաբաս ուրիշ կնիկ մունեցած է, ես անոր զավակն եմ, եւ անոր անունը Վարդուհի է. Բստիկ 4-5 տարեկան է, I had imagined որ my mom wasn't my mom. She couldn't be my mom if she's this strict, this pan, xist asam.
What was the role of your mother in your life, you know?
Well, the role of my mother was a mother and father. That is the worst part of it. It means it's not the kindness and then gentleness and the warmth of a mom. You know, although father was like that, but he didn't show it too much, that part. You remember when growing up? When you do something, they say why you did that, but not what do you feel when you do that? So we were not in touch with feelings at all. It was what other people had to see us, you know, how to view us. That's how we felt, you know, how that's we thought of doing it, but we didn't really feel it. I was afraid of stating out what's happening, my feelings. So because of proper things that to happen in the family. But then, you know, I learned to appreciate more later years. And that I understand why she did that, because she needed to raise 4 children with a big family. I think she had a lot.
Panele verci, orice portarle schemaie, arak misen, gălețele smece. Masiyara saçılıyor şuna, kişme lemon çur, kişne lavatını ve verci besesini kaçır. Լամուսի սլազավակներս առանց սուպի, այսպես Բարս խաշած է սիրել։
Պատմի քու հարսանիքիդ օրը բայց պիտցնես կանեպան ինչի գնմաներ մեզոման հոներ ով հոներ ինչպես արդուժամքային արտնցար սկացումներ ինչպես էին վախով բանով ինչպիսին
Արաբական սովորություններ կան հարսանիքի երբ որ հարսը դուն կմտնա վսակեն վերջը թուրին վրա խմոր մը կշաղեն եւ թուրին վրա կփակցնեն վրան խաչ մը կհանեն մենք հայերս չունենք այդ սովորությունը սակայն մեր դանդեր արաբը լալով ինքը պատրաստեր էր աթորը թրին փողոցի մար թուրին վրա այդ խմորը փակցուցի եւ վրանա խաչ անե խաչ մարի ուրեմն հարսանիքի սորը խրախճանք էր բարեցին բայց մենք որովհետեւ Նարոդը մեր ջակնի վրա էր դակավին, իրավունք չունեինք բարելու, ներկաները իրենց ուրախություններին, մենք չգրցինք մասնակցել այդ բարերուն դերուն։ Ահին սովորություն, և ես 6 ամիս Իսրայելից հետ չեմ խոսած, շատեր դարիներ գնեին, անախու 6 ամիս վերջը ես խոսեցա հետ։
Actually, Everexin Fenesitsi աղջիկը չէի տարանդեղ։
Դա է շատ դժվար։
Շատ դժվար։ Հա դուք առաջինն եք։
Եղել դժվար է Everexin Fenesի հարցալ օտարություն է։ 20 վայրկյան է եղած։
Յա, ինձ իմ այսօր։
Բայց սովորությունները տարբեր էին։ Ֆելիսետին հաջին են քաղտած են, իսկ Everexin Գեսարիա են, որովհետեւ գեսարացիներու բնավորություններ ունի սովորությունները Մանավանդի դες արևդուրի մեջ երկրորդ իրենց գծությունը խնամավ ավելի գեսարացի խրախարնված ունեն իսկ ֆելեսեցին ուդեն խմենք ապրին քեֆ ունենք
All throughout history from humanity beginning which I don't know it's 10 billion now 3 million whatever it is There's a line that came all the way to my mother and father. They lived in 2 Armenian villages, 5-minute donkey walk between. They would never marry each other, ever since humanity started. It was the first time my mother and father in Lebanon married of these 2 villages. So there was all this fight all the time in our home. And my mother, being a kick-ass bitch, she's the one who would walk in when they were arguing and she'd stop everybody. Oh, and then walk out, make coffee, bring the coffee back, and then the men argued. And she would shut them up, like enough already. Mama, ասմասը ինչ բինենք, պիտի մտածենք, մեկ հատ դեպ վերթաս, պիտի սկսես Ալբերին մամային ընտանիքի մասին քիչ մը խոսիլ, հետո Ալբեր առաջին անգամ Ամերիկայեն գուքագորնավով, Վարդուին գտեսնեգոր, Գամուստանանգոր, Վարդուին հետ երթանգոր, այդ պատմությունը կպատմես կո։
Ուրեմն երբ անգերտան, Սիրանը, որ անունը Սիրան էր, որ անունը Չարլի, ամուսինն անունը, Ալբերի բաբան խորին կախտագանթեն առաջ կացած արդեն Ամերիկա։ Իսկ Ալբերի մաման 1928-ին ուրեմն Բեյրութ եկած են, Բեյրութեն Ամերիկա կացած են, կամուսանան և գունենան Ալբերտը։ Տարիներ վերջ ուրեմն Սիրանը Բեյրութ եկավ։ Բեյրութ եկավ և Վարդուին դեսավ, շատ սիրեց, անշուշտ է ասկականալ է, մեկ հատիկ մանչուներ որն անուն Ալբերտ էր, ուրեմն ուզեր որ Ալբերտին հետ ամուսնացել է։ Մոտ 5-6 ամիս վերջ արդեն Վարդուին Ամերիկա գնաց և հոն ամուսնացան։
You know, it's funny when նոր փոխադրեցանք նես, երբ որ եկանք բաբա մաման ես, Ռաքստանտին, բաբային մահվան 2 շաբաթ առաջ էր ինչ էր։ Ռաքստանտինն հավաքված էինք ամենքս։ Բաբաս ինձի challenge մրավ, ինձի դարձավ սա, որ host describer-ը, նկարակրե է սա։ Վար ամենքս հավաքված էինք basement-ը։ Սի չուսեմ սի, եղբայրս ոսեն շանզոն դե թու կոսեք եւ այլն, He was not happy with it. I did not know what he was aiming. Vor. I've always wondered. For him, it was like having all of it together. We're all here together. Եվ նույն օրը, ուրեմն դուրս ելավ վերջը, ես ալմիշտ բաբան խոսել եմ, ուրեն է երևեն գետարնայի նույտ կար խոսելի։ Սա որ դեսար սա վաստեղը կար, բզդիկ պամ մագար, կար գար, բրիկ մեկ հադը կեդին ինգած էր։ Սա որ դեսար սա վասկարը կեդին ինգած է պադին վրա է։ Ելավ ձրա, կարը արավ ետ տեղը թրա։ Սա հիմա ասկարը ես ոստերի, բայց նա է սա գշարժի որ, չի գենա։ Պետք է երթամ, սիմենտ եւ այլն փերեմ, եւ ասի ձեփեմ, որ չի շարժի։ Բայց սա մարմինս դգար է հոգիս հոժար։ Չեմ գրնար ադիենել։ Միան ասկանը գնեմ սա։ Սա որ կոնե սա կեդինը չէ, ետ իր դեղն է։ Ասկանը ըրի։ Maybe that's what he meant. Որ he brought us this far. This is how much he could do. Գուզե բայց չի գրնար, ասկան է։ Ասկեց անտին, the rest continue.
Guys, no bodyguards, not during the show. Take a break, they can't see around all your muscles and shit. Go back there, relax, go massage each other, whatever you do. Fuck, between your muscles and big head over here, no one's gonna see shit, my God. I gotta sit in the front row. Hey, fuck you, short bitch behind me. See, look how angry she is. She's just old, never mind. Anyway. You guys sound ready to go. I guess the coke and the booze have kicked in, so I'm very proud, but
My creativity is inspired by what I think will initially piss people off, anger people. You kind of shock them into something, and then the challenge to then make them laugh at it, make them laugh at themselves is really exciting.
It's like a little peninsula of fucking assholes, just white, rich assholes. I love it.
Oh, it's like Florida.
There you go, look at that. This is buttfuck central. Too bad they're all ugly and shit. All right. You don't even look, do you? You just close your eyes.
Of course, our humor is edgy, it's aggressive, it's interactive, it's all these things at once.
You're in luck. We've got the gays right over here at table one, so... Oh my God, look at that big fat guy fucking a little fat guy. I love it.
Who is your audience?
Whoever's sitting out there. Everyone goes to Vegas. Night to night, it changes. So, you know, one night it's like, oh, the rodeo's in town. It's like cowboys. You're like, oh, okay, it's a different audience.
Oh, that's so good. Look, the gays right over here, and then the Republicans right over there. Right? Yeah. Hey, nothing says I hate homos like a golf polo, right?
You might assume that this cowboy sitting in the front row with his cowboy hat on and like literally just came from the rodeo. We're saying some very edgy things and maybe politically very different from him. But he's so confident in himself as who he is, that he can laugh both at himself and at other people and at the situation. So there's an honesty about that, and that's really interesting.
Now you gotta sit here and look at these guys all fucking night, right? All that shit you voted against here, they're all fucking married and shit. Celebrating with their little penis-shaped champagne bottles, man. Look at that.
And then right next to him is, I don't know, someone a liberal from New York that you think, oh, they're gonna love our humor, but they have their own issues and maybe they're not as honest with themselves about who they are and they don't suddenly like what we're saying and see a different side of it.
Or is that your Mexican? You brought the gardener with you? I'm sorry. Oh, you're not an asshole. All right, okay.
It's probably a tax write-off.
Oh, that's true.
You can never guess what an audience will laugh at, and that's what it is. It's let's be very honest. So I'm honestly saying what I want to say, what I think is funny. She's doing what she thinks is funny. Together, we're doing something that we think is funny. But also, the audience has to be honest with themselves, and that's when you find that you connect with people you don't necessarily think you're going to connect with.
All right, you guys ready to see some more cool shit? Let's get on with the fucking show! Oh, sorry.
Do you feel your cultural background further fuels your creativity and keeps you sharp, or does it feel like a burden?
I definitely think it fuels. I don't think it's a burden at all. I think seeing things from different perspectives and from different cultures and from different points of view just adds to how you see life and how you see humor especially.
I think our humor is so American. Our style, our aggressiveness is so American. But also I grew up in a rural American as you can get town, but also grew up with a hyphenated American father and a very liberal mother and a liberal family in this place.
In 1969, I was involved in multimedia, and a very interesting story, I say. I was hired through a producer. I was hired by Milwaukee Beer Company, and I was at a board meeting with maybe 6, 7 vice president, the president, and the idea is I was to design a new bottle shape, come up with a new name, a new label, the whole thing. So it's a discussion of what the beer is and so forth. And it went around like that, and the marketing and what the taste would be, so forth. It turned out they wanted it to be designed for black people. And the marketing person said, and they're going to sell it for 35 cents instead of the regular 25. Why? The marketing person, because black people pay 10 cents more, they will feel like white people and better. At this meeting, I fell apart and started crying because all day long, across the hall from my workshop is Black Panther's office. Angela Davis, all those black dudes, they come in and out, so they use my space. So I was stuck between these two things of corporate America, how they totally market it, they target it, and they do it, like that. And then I was, black movement happening. It was like just mind-blowing. And I closed my company. 2 weeks later, I quit that whole commercial aspect of it and all that, and I ran to Paris, All day, I did nothing. I just walked the streets all day long, walked the street. When I came back, I was already ready to go to nature. So I didn't even stay in New York. Right away, I looked for a place to buy in Millerton, a little village nearby. And I bought a dilapidated building. I learned how to fix it, put heat in it, how to do plumbing, how to do electricity, how just to survive. At the time, the 60s, I had to fight not to go to war. Then there was the feminist movement, and I was a very close friend of Gloria Steinem. We hung around. And amongst all these movements that was happening in the 60s, there was kind of a civil disobedience about it, even though it got sometimes military cant and all that. But in general, there was this peaceful way of resolving it. And one of those peaceful ways for me to deal with the art world and an urban art, there was a whole movement to go back to nature, who were called hippies probably, whatever. But anyway, it was back to nature. Overall, having left that urban art world and being there for the parties and all that, has been a very liberating thing, because then the consciousness of what art making is went further than what Europeans think an artist's role is, or what Americans think. Look at this piece. This is of the gods, you know. No one has come even close to daring to attack a block like that. When Haig would finish one piece, suddenly there was like an emergency call for me, everybody. I need another log. So we all right away had to run all over the place and see. I had just gotten 2 logs myself. Actually, I got a truckload of it, and I offered them 2 of them. So I got the truck, I brought it over, and he wanted to pay for it. I said, I had bought it for like a huge truck. Forget it. Oh no, I had to pay for it. So we sat there for half an hour arguing until he was satisfied to write me a $150 check. Then he felt good. When he lied down to die here, he asked me to give him the metal thing, and he hung on to it for 12 days. While he was dying for 12 days, he hung on to it like a force to come down. This was beautiful. I started using these for making like paintings and things like that, gluing it. One day he called me, he said, Onnig, he said, I have some of those shells. Do you allow me to make my own? I said, yes. So he made these afterward. It was like, asked for permission. This used to be his bed here. And this is where he died. There are over 35 light bulbs here. Every night he had to turn off to go to sleep. Every one of these things have lights in it, this one, that one, they all have little lights in them. See this electric? 35 of light bulbs had to all be turned off every night. And all these clocks used to work. So every 5 minutes, one of them went like ding, dong, dong, dong, dong, dong, dong, dong, every 5 minutes. You know how many there are here? You see these? This little gizmo did it. See the little light bulb here? This is the last piece he was working on. He was working on this like 2 weeks before he died. This is where we bury him.
Oh, yeah? The teachers you choose will make you who you are. And sometimes you know what you need to learn, then you look for the teacher to teach you. It's funny, they say in your childhood, because of you living with the mom, your dad, whatever, you come with certain patterns to survive. But as you get in your adulthood, those patterns don't apply anymore. You're bringing those same patterns into this outside world, they're outdated.
Right.
And they say the solutions of your childhood become the problems of your adulthood. I choose to be what I want to be. I'm not going to react because as a child I don't have a choice. Now I have a choice. That's where the existential crisis comes in. I have a choice to be who I am. All my life, I've been so concerned about being the good girl, doing the right thing, chasing after the good dreams, doing the community service, doing this, doing that, being this, whatever it is. I don't know what I like. I don't know what Mireille enjoys. I have been too busy following all the dreams, fantasies, whatever that has been set in front of me. The only thing I know that I enjoy is this flamenco dance, and I know that's completely out of tradition. Burden or no burden, my life, it was winded, and it came here and stopped. Now you wind it again. It's like, and you're saying, okay, I believed in this, I believed in that, I did this, I did that. Come here. You know what? It doesn't mean anything to me now. My Armenianism doesn't mean anything to me now. Ես բարելու սկսան, իմ ամասը սա, որ ինչ կսորի սկորաս, ինչ պինես բիտ բարեսյանը պաները։ Սիմա մեջ կարևոր չէ ինչ պիտենեմ։ Գսիրեմ որ բար բիտ բարեմ, that's it. It's the only thing that kept me going. And throughout it, I realized so much of me, so much of you can change in what you're doing.
Ani nույն դարին ինչ-որ արտաշեսի ներկայացումը ըրած ենք, նեմն ադենը ըրած եմ at առանցին ադի ուրիշ ներկայացումներ էինք, բադբոբորա, 4 հոգիով ներկայացումն էր, այնադին այդ նկարված եմ։
Թերդ ինչ եղած։
Ոս ուրեմն իշխանիմը աղջիկն է, որ սկսիր արվի գոր զիվորիմը, եմ զիվորի թերարեր էի,
Զակրականի աստադրոնի մասը ասաբոյ աղջիկներու դպրոց էր։ Դուք աղջիկ եք։
Ոչ, հագարակ որ մաչ աղջիկ, բայց նորենս հագարակ էր, բոլոր աղջիկները մաչու դարազը ունել դվա։ Ունենք աշակերտ հակի մաչ կան մեր տասարանը։ Բոլոր թերագադարները լա դղա լա աղջիկներ են թերագադարները։
Դու ինչպես սկացիր, քեզի դուղութեր դվեր է։
Էջք տալ, հազի 13 տարեկան թեր արինք, կսիրեի։
Imagine, if you will. Imagine. Yes, beauty beyond beauty. Imagine your own beautiful fantasy, like a beautiful, like a
Penis.
Give you a little idea of like how Penny came about.
Penny came from fear. It came from not knowing what I was doing. I didn't know what character I was doing. I didn't know who she was. She didn't come to life until I was in front of an audience. Because I was an actress, I was very scared. I was like, where are my lines? What are my lines? What am I doing? And Voki was like, just get out there and just say anything. Whatever, just go out there and just do whatever you want. And I was like, what do you mean just go out there and do whatever I want? What do I say? And he's like, say whatever you want. So I went out there, like say, hello, the exits are here in case there's a fire, and you know, all the, just turn your cell phones off, all the things you're supposed to. And I totally blanked, and I kind of assumed a position, and the character kind of came from that fear of like, oh no, I'm gonna be in trouble because I'm letting someone down. I told the audience, oh, I forgot what I was supposed to say, and then they left. I was like, oh. And then so I just kind of continued with that. I was like, let me think. I sat down and talked to someone in the audience, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna be in so much trouble. Like, I don't know what to say, and then there was like more laughter, so. She came from that. She came from this innocence, like
Honesty, I would say.
Honesty.
I would say it comes from honesty. Fear, yeah, but honestly kind of connecting with your emotions. That was what people laughed at, was I don't know what I was going to say, and they could tell that, oh, you really didn't know what you were going to say. And then that kind of fuels the moment of being, so it's both being honest and being honest with yourself of what emotions you're feeling, which is why what we do in terms of live comedy is very difficult to translate to film, because you're not experiencing in the moment, and then there's an editor editing what you say and trying to make it funny, and you get further away from kind of purely connecting.
That's why this interview is not honest at all.
Also, don't edit this at all.
This is a story of two girls, Louise
And Thelma.
No.
Yeah. That's like the best lesbo movie ever, man. Hey, Thelma, we don't need our husbands. Thanks till we die. Oh my God, I hope I get an Oscar nomination for this. You totally should. You're so sweet. By the way, I love your new haircut. Thanks, I just got it done. What's really in the comment?
Ama ise tüm aşağı batger bahades asal hişadage. İnce var aşağı pana ince ağvor pana batger bahelun. Vor vera hişes batger mesle hişes.
Yanki şadagne. Yanki mes gver vorode şader gertan gmernin şadagat kmana. Yandagar vor pep şadak kurnas bahel.
Fakat ku ammene araçın hişat hizdak batger mangutyan batger hişada geliyor. Ammene araçın vor hişes everek.
Everek ժամանակ հայրս ակսորած են ամուսնեն վերջը։ Երկու տարի ինձ ես շատ լայի տաջիկներ ուրեմն չեն իմացած սեփոկդեսնան տրացիները։ Վերջը հայրս վերադարձավ 13 տարեկան կայի։ Լավ գիշեմ օրս վերադարձը։ Ամենա ուրախ օրս եղած է։
Bagertan ki fakat kişmi yergar batmero everegin fenesein batmerin batme. Mekat yereva gayet in çapki işes ya kaletsor inzi. Dune tprosedun babat ure xanut
Առաջ տպոսի շատ մոդեր, Everek ֆենեսե մեծ հրավորտի մեջ չգասին, կարելով 15 վարգյան, 20 վարգյան։ Բայց Everegi ֆենեսեի միջև տաջիկները դապրեին։ Ամես որ տաջիկները հայգան տպրոց եկեղեցի ամենը կոցեցին, ստիված ֆենեսեի տպրոցի վերթայինք։ Ազիվ արդեն 3 տարի, 4 տարի հազվկացինք, հոնակոծվեցավ։ Ստիված թրկական տպրոց կացինք։ Տաջիկերեն, լատիներեն սորվեցանք։ Հայրս պազբանտամ ընտանիքի զավակ, մեծ հայրսա պուրաբան եղած է, չուզեր մնալ, 16 տարեկանի գցի Եգիպտոս կերտա, ուզե տեղակորդելլալ։ Կերտա տեղակորդի մկով կորդավոր գմտա, թե դունը կորդավորություն գնե, թե տեղարանը։ Որմ 5 տարի վերջ, հավագան սորված կվերատարն է էվերեք։ Եվ գադարյալ տեղակորդ առանց վգայեգանի, ի վերջո գամուսանա։ Մինչ այդ կաղտականությունը հայրսի որ գերտա, կինը մեծ օրս հետ կաղտական գերտա և գմերնի։ Մինչ այդ հայրս զինատատարեն վերջի գվերատարնա գուկա էվերեք, կգտնա գնայի ընտանիքը չիգան, ուրեմն գվերամուսնանա մամայիս հետ։ Հայրս երբ որ եկավ էվերեք, ուրեմն թշնամին կան հորս, քիչերով դարին ձեզեցին։
Որ
Բաբայիս ամբողջ գլուխյալ վիրավորված, եւ հայրս սկսի բորալ։ Հազիվ մեկ քիչ ասենք 10 մետր անտին փողոց ունեինք։ Խոնգը մտցնենք, զարնեն բահակները, մինչ այդ հայրս մեկ ցայնի կբորա։ Ազատող չի գամասելով, մինչև մեր դունը գլսվի, հերու չեր որովհետև հետո զարուգին մեծ հայրը անոք կլսեն գվազեն հայրս կադեն դուն գպերեն ադոբրասավ հայրս հոս չեն կենար այլևս մեկ շապատ վերջ արդեն պասպոր արավ հայրս վերուտ եկավ Դամար շատ ամիշ կյանք եղած է ավերագի կյանքը։ Մագությանս լավակին օր ապրել է։ Հորս ներգայությունը, մեծ մորս ներգայությունը, բոլորին սերավայր եմ կուրկուրանքը։
Բաբատ ու տալբեր, ու տապած է։ Ես հետ չեմ իշեր է տալես, ես բանին գեյիսյան, Miranda da ինգլի իշան։
Ճիշտ կողմն էր բաբայիս։
Հա։
Ճիշտ կողմի տամ բաբաս էր։
In 1972 or 73, 71 probably, something, 1971. Anyway, I got a message that my father had a heart attack in Lebanon. So I was in the middle of a project. I left everything and ran to Lebanon. And he was okay in the hospital. And so I went to his shop, I got the key, opened his shop, and opened the safe because usually they have bills they have to pay monthly and so forth, just to look at what was going on in his life, what he owed. So I opened the safe, and the whole safe, the depth of the safe like that, end to end, were the backs of cigarette packs that he smoked all day. And on them he wrote these poems, and in stacks of rubber band, had them like that through the years, the whole thing. No one in the family knew that my father ever wrote a poem. My father, at 4, he was in there or starving to death. So it is no, he's never been to school or anything. He had a heart attack, he got better. A year later, he came to America. And after, in that 1 month and a half that he was here, every week we met. And every week, I wrote a poem and I gave it to him. He wrote a poem, gave it to me. Because it was two emotional things, we couldn't talk, so we did it in poetry form. And what happened was, a week before he died, when we moved our poems apart, and suddenly, mine were like simple feelings and thoughts to a father, questions and things. Well, I realized that the poem I had written, it's as if he had written it to me, and the one he had written was as if I wrote it to him. So we already we didn't have to move poems anymore around. And a week later he died. At a similar time, I had a great lawyer friend in New York City when I was in business, and I used to go there for advice. And one day after my father had died, a week, I went to visit him for legal advice and found out his son had committed suicide the week before, exactly the same time as my father. So we sat there in his office, and he smoked his pipe, I smoked cigarette, and we cried. After that, we walked out as father and son, and we adopted each other. So that's how we lived. So I moved to the country and to Millerton, and then one day he came by and he said, "You come with me." So he got me with 20-minute drive. We came here, it was a forest. So we walked all the way up to the top of the hill where the Mayon is now and stood there. And he said, "This property from there to there to there to there to there is part of my property, it's yours." Good. So that was it. What had happened was, interestingly, for me, it was the grief of his dead son to transcend it, to go a place. He came and adopted me, brought me here, gave me the land, said, "You live here, I come visit you, you need anything, taxes I pay for you, whatever. Just live here, make your family work." He was raised here and all that. So suddenly, this grief concept, suddenly you adopt someone and it makes up and you go there and you live like love. And I feel like my father, who was in Der Zor at the age of 4, was able to do that. We never got that feeling, that part of it. He already accepted it and moved on like that, you know. So we didn't get the feeling of all the terror and what we have to do. We have to get up and my God, we have to go there and revolt against the Turks. We never got that. We moved on. He moved on. And I think, for me, it has saved me.
Եվ կամ գարոդեն բադար մահացի, որալ երազ էր լուսնին թրացի.
2015 was the 100th anniversary of a genocide, of Armenian genocide. Basically, it was Christians being butchered by Turks, Ottoman Turks at the time. So the 100th anniversary was coming, and my companion said, what am I to do about that? And it's a painful, sorrowful thing. For 100 years, we've been carrying it. Of course, on top of it, 3 nations deny that it ever existed. One is, of course, Turkey, one is Israel, and one is United States. So here I am, I live amongst people who deny that it happened. So I took the project and wondered what could I come up with, and it just so happened at that period, a dear childhood friend of mine sent me a book of poems by our poetry teacher, who was a survivor of the genocide. He had watched his whole family being butchered, end up in a desert, and then survived the Second World War and Lebanese war, because he grew up in Lebanon, and then the Armenians killing each other in Lebanon, and another Lebanese war, and on top of it all, his son dies at the age of 30, a car accident. He is totally devastated, so he writes this poem. And what does he end up at the end? He says the only way he could transcend the sorrow was to adopt all victims, all children, as his own. This person transformed its pain, but the transformation of the pain for my own self was, how can I become a universalist? Because I want to tell the story and I want to make it universal. What is immortality? What do you think is immortal?
Well, when asking me what is immortal, I don't know much about it because I'm in this mortal body. And I'm trying to see, to even figure out what is this body about, where the mind comes in this body, how I connect with my body and connect mind and body, and free myself at the same time from both of them, you know. So I don't know. I don't know what it really means to be immortal unless poets and writers and artists and they write and they put all their creative art out, so we can always remember them, if that is immortality, you know, or thinking immortal meaning that the soul lives forever, you know. That this body can disappear and the soul lives. But even that way, if I am complete in this body and kind of, I don't want to say purified so much, that would be enough for me. And then whatever happens, I don't know. I don't know where the soul goes, and my experience of this body and this mind, what this mind does, what my thinking does, what my ability of giving, so that's for me, what it is. I don't know much about immortality.
Oh, dick, oh, dick, oh, oh, oh. Oh, dick, oh, dick, oh, oh, dick. Oh, dick, oh, dick, oh, oh, dick. Oh, oh, oh, oh, oh, oh, oh. Oh, oh, oh, oh, oh, oh, oh, oh, oh. Oh, dick, oh, dick, oh, oh, dick. Oh, dick, oh, dick, oh, oh, dick. Oh, dick, oh, dick, oh, dick. Oh, oh, dick. Oh, dick, oh, dick, oh, dick. Oh, oh, oh. I think it's this month I'm celebrating the first anniversary of a grandson. It has changed my whole perspective to history, basically, because now I'm looking at this thing and how do I hope, wish, and guide this child what direction to take in life, considering some of the issues that are existing in the world and our society. And going back to the time when black people were in that situation, they were suddenly liberated, and they didn't know what to do. They had no idea what work, money, any of that meant. They had no experience like that. So they came out onto two different paths. One was Du Bois, who was an intellectual, and he had gone into like Harvard and all so forth. And his thesis was that black people should be guided toward education. Then it'll be like the white people, European education. On the other side, Booker T. Washington, he said, no, we have to learn how to work. We have to learn how to use our hands, how to make things, how to work. And they started Tuskegee, which is a phenomenal concept at the time, just 11-year-old Booker T. Washington being freed. Here we go. So my question has been about my grandson, which part do I take for that? There's this intellectual part and there's an empirical part.
Yeah. Good.
Now, a good example of where I mistrust academia, I mistrust any of this intellectual thing where the work ethics isn't there. And I saw that in Karabakh. In Karabakh, I was with a group of people, Zori Balayan, Silva Gabudik, and a whole bunch of them, who absolutely went to Moscow, made a deal. If they give them Karabakh, they'll have Armenia and this part, that part, and a deal with the Russians. And the Russians made a deal. And so suddenly, in that little deal, Armenians had to be kicked out of Azerbaijan. A whole pogrom started. 15,000 Armenians got killed, and so forth and so on. And suddenly it was this intellectual group of people who had not done a day's work in their life. Were deciding, those hard-working people who were there doing their work and loving it. So this intellectual path is a complicated place because in its two-dimensionality, in its monotheism, it creates Silicon Valley. It's a totally monotheist concept. It's like, I am right, you are wrong. So it doesn't accept the other side, non-existent. So how do we bring them together? Okay, I'm not going to do Booker Washington, but it's not going to be Du Bois either.
Creating this gazillionaire character, like where does it come from, all this stuff, and then my aunt, Kardash's sister, the first time she saw it, she was like, oh, that's your dad, you're doing your dad. And I was like, what? I mean, I know my first day of kindergarten, my mom had to sit me down and say, all right, so there's words that we say at home, and there's words that, some of those words you're not allowed to say at school, because I heard those words, at home and knew how to use them and knew what they meant. and kind of the fun of that fun of just on a superficial level of what curse words kind of inspire in people, and I think for sure that influence has been that I know he likes to very much more on a political level versus a humorous level is to dig in there and find what it is in a group of people that everyone's gonna go, ah! That is kind of how I interpret and am inspired by that, subconsciously, that need to push people to their limit.
At young age, I rebelled. I rebelled. I rebelled because my mother said her father rebelled all the time. He got beaten up in bars, in cafes in Turkey, in Everett, because he opened his big fat mouth, like me. Voki speaks about that, to be that honesty, what is humor, how to laugh at yourself. And he says, why Armenians have no sense of humor is because they can't laugh at themselves. Because everything is so seriously taken, it's like they can't really look back at somewhere in history and fucking crack up. Like I would say, many artists have come in this house from Armenia, and we have said together, aren't we lucky that I was not born and raised right now in Everett, a shepherd, a Dumbo? Fuck no. So what can I say? I'm sorry for my parents, grandparents to have died, but I'm moving on. And something great happened out of that. I end up in America. I have to say for myself that all through the years that I've been in the United States, I was here, I was 17, 18 years old, and never I have ever felt that I had a hang-up about being an immigrant. Even though sometimes I have been told by people that American corporate IBM meetings, I would get up and give like a communist speech without considering to be communist, just the idea as a social idea. Going through multimedia, through corporate, I've been to the Pentagon doing the World's Fair for Americans. So I've been around the world, I've traveled, and I've never ever felt like there was something holding me back.
مين خلاك تنشد يا بلبل مين خباك بهالشجرة مين وداك تجاي تنقل عنا غناني وحكايات ليش بتضل يا بلبل تنزل فوق بالدار عند الحلوين اوعى عندن عنا تسأل هودي منا محسودين رايح جاي واغصوني نبتتكي فيلك غاي صنف علينا حكي هون الفل بعد ما زهر وهون ما فيش عنا أسرار بس بريالي هيك بنسهر نحنا وانتو هيك بجار رايح جاي واغصوني نبتتكي فيلك غاي صنف علينا حكي رايح جاي واغصوني نبتتكي فيلك غاي صنف علينا Anatolia.